Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies. Welcome to the new headquarters of the Captain America Nightlight. My daughter, Brooklyn, 3 years old, eccentric already, highly active, and very, very interested in her Captain America Nightlight. She loves the thing. She also tears it to pieces, so that's something of an issue. You gotta be careful how close you get to that girl. She has a curious and highly aggressive streak in her. In any event, speaking of highly aggressive, you are now watching MetaDave taking apart his first enemy MBT, and the first thing we notice is that MetaDave is using the view from the gunner's sight option, meaning he's going to have some parallax error potential in matches. The advantage of view from the gunner's sight is you're already warmed up for simulator battles, and you can have a little bit of a preview of what your cannon will shortly have eyes on if you have a periscope style gun sight the way the Leo does. This being the special Leo that performs well in its battle rating and nicely in this match until the point where you just miss the ammunition on the Soviet frying pan and go from the fryer into the fire. Now, respawning in the ordinary 7.7 battle rating Das Leopard, a fantastic MBT at its own tier, but lacking the stabilizer and AP FSDS that makes tanks at this battle rating so effective. In any event, with some nicely placed shots and a little bit of moxie, good timing, and calculated aggression, you can manage to do well, and that's exactly what MetaDave is going to do in the backup Leopard in this match. He's going to score a good number of kills on this, his second life, and he'll manage to make Heat FS work for him even in this higher tier match. No Object XYZ to confound and confuddle him at this point. It hadn't even come to the game. And I already hear the stirrings of discontent from players that have a third 8.3 Soviet MBT that they don't know how to deal with. I just saw someone posting on the Reddit about how the thing is a monster in AB, and I'm not really qualified to comment on that, but I suspect that an adequate dosage of Get Good is a suitable solution to the issue. But another thing that's definitely necessary, you've got to turn off the background music and listen to engine sounds that enemy Soviet what's-his-nuts T-55 tea time just wasn't paying attention. Another thing you have to do is machine gun down those wire fences, because what is not enough to stop a Rottweiler is enough to set off the fuse of anything high explosive in this game lacking the AP moniker. Heat FS, fantastic at punching through armor, helpless against a wire fence. Seems a bit offensive to me. Shots come in from the air, but not the terrifying American 20 mils that would punch through the roof of a Leo. It must have been something else. Maybe a Brit boy with significantly reduced 20 millimeter penetrative power, and I have no idea why the Hispanos don't have access to a proper AP round. It seems it's just a snail trying to hold the T-man down. But MetaDave, nonetheless, doing well with already 4 kills and I think a base cap. Could be wrong. I must admit I haven't been paying as much attention to this match as I need to, because it's just so hard to talk and think and watch at the same time. That's one of the reasons that I'm so abysmal in live streams, but I try to make up in comedy what I lack in tactical effectiveness when I'm streaming, which is almost never these days, on account of I have two very loud, belligerent, and adorable daughters that badger me whenever they get the chance. They see me talking to the mic, they get very, very jealous, and I can't really blame them. Anyway, while I was yammering on, Dave picked up another kill on yet another enemy who was not looking in his direction. And if you look at what Dave has been doing, he's working the front line of battle. He's listening for enemy vehicle sounds. Here he popped some smoke because he heard an engine next to him, and he knows that there is an enemy in this vicinity, if only by looking at his minimap. Enemy engaged with an ally, and he takes him down. It is the shillelagh wielding that thing. Dang it, I did the same thing the first time I watched this replay. That's right. It'll come to me, the name of that tank, but I recorded this entire commentary of I think over a half hour, and then I realized that I wasn't actually recording. So here we are again after something of an interlude. I actually recorded this the first time while both girls were taking a nap, which is a rare treat and no mean feat, as the wrpl gets taken down by a single shot from Heat FS, the way you do. Yet another Sheridan, that's the name, M551 if numbers are your game, doesn't manage to take down MetaDave with his powerful main gun and pays the price. Dave at his leisure at that point to take down the poor American light tank that has such an abysmal reload rate compared with other MBTs at its tier. An interesting idea, and one that doesn't work out well for American players a good amount of the time. But I guess that ATGM on demand is pretty neat, even if the the Bradley IFV outclasses it in every other regard. In any event, a little bit of a skip ahead there, because again, this is going to be a long video with 3 replays coming in total. That's right, I'm very happy to get back to showing off what you all are doing, and if you haven't sent in a replay, I very much encourage you to do so. It's a lot of fun to get out there and see your own gameplay go up. And one last American MBT trying to push up at the last seconds of the match, but Dave immobilizes his foe, repairs his own track, and takes off as the tickets bleed away one last time from the enemy team. This is MetaDave in a GG in the backup Leopard, the original OG 7.7 Leopard in, what is this, an 8-7 match? Something like that. Not bad, not bad at all. Sometimes you don't need all the bells and whistles, just a good head on your shoulders. And now, let the madness commence. This is the part of the game where we spin in circles. Yes, indeed, it is Tank Arcade. Get back here, come on. Watch this one, it's a good one. Sorry, this is, let me just zoom in real quick for my old man eyes here. Of course, it's Lima Victor in the good old M4 Sherman with its 75mm death potato launcher that is even more reliable after the now old news penetration mechanics update for War Thunder. What am I trying to say? The formula. Yes, the formula. Not the algorithm. Anyway, with just shy of 100mm of armor penetration, the M4 Sherman at this tier has a lot of potential to punch through enemy tanks, and with its generous portions of high explosive filler, the only thing that Gaijin seems to really look at when it comes to post-penetration effect for AP HE rounds, it has quite a lot of opportunity to do well. But arcade is a little bit of a different animal, as you can see with the M24 tanking hit after hit. Man, if it could do that in RB, it'd be even more of an overpowered monster than it already is. But Abrams MBT levels of survivability come in arcade with the way that the crew replenishment feature works. You get last stand, where you can control your vehicle with only one crew left remaining, even if you're not the STRV 103 what's it called where you twitch uncontrollably? Parkinson's boy? The Parkinson's TD, lads and ladies, spreading awareness better than, dang it, I've totally forgotten his name. Anyway, you get the idea. Bouncing a shot off the side of the M24 and being taken down by a flanking foe in retort. I was going to talk about how crew replenishment works in Tank AB. You can actually activate crew replenishment on any point of the map, not just a captured zone, and it automatically triggers if you're knocked down to one crew member, whereupon your tank will survive with one crew member until the second teleports in from the mission loading screen and joins you in your struggle, most likely to get penned one last time and watch one or both of your remaining crew members take the long nap until you return to hangar. Of course, no pixels are harmed in the making of this game, only your emotions, as enemy bomber comes in for what would have been a fantastic bombing run in RB, but doesn't take into account the, I think it's around a 5-second delay on bombs triggering in arcade mode. Another change from RB that you all who've been playing RB with me may not be aware of. The solution for that is a simple one: to fly your bomber at around 1,000 meters, and then your bombs will detonate more or less on impact. The arcade bomb indicator is your friend, and you can actually score a good number of kills that way. Players in Tank Arcade being used to the fact that they can generally have a few seconds to respond when the bomb falls. And while I was talking about all that, Lima Victor has been living up to his name and dying a hero's death, surrounded by foes, covered in the burnt out gunpowder of his enemies, and now spawning in the war-winning IL-2. Of course, Mstitel so powerful, Sturmovik so strong, that in arcade it is limited to, what is it, around 30 seconds before you have to return to your tank. I kind of thought it would be interesting to see what you could do in arcade if you weren't limited in such a way, but there are other ways that your wings can be clipped in War Thunder, and surprise architecture is definitely one of them. I've died to that, what is it, a flagpole, communications thingy, a monument to Russian bias. Oh, we're getting closer now. Speaking of a nice penetrating shot into the enemy T-34, but not the amount of post-penetration effect that you might hope for. The Ram Mark II, a fantastic maple syrup version of an American classic, mixed with a bit of British wishful thinking in the process. having thicker than your average Sherman cast frontal armor based on the Grizzly, and a fully rotating turret for the relief driver / machine gunner just for swag's sake, a fancy layered complex armor design for the turret that is reminiscent of a mix between an M3 Lee and something British. Vaguely British noises activate. Yes, yeah. But excellent, Lars. We'll call it Ram Mark II. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm emotionally drained. I've been sustaining the life force of 2 to 3 precious women today to the best of my ability, and baby Zoe, who's working toward 1.5 years old, is getting more and more belligerent by the day. Her sense of injustice keenly peaked at any point where her little tiny despotic will is not met, something that the Stug 3 can probably relate to. A field gun that's fielded more in terms of anti-tank head-on warfare than it probably should be in the game of War Thunder. A reliable chassis at low tier, not quite so effective against the 3.7 monstrosity that is the beginning of America's low to mid-tier lineup, and the beginning of their complete dominance of RB and AB matches. The Shermans, all the stabilized 75s with their short stop stabilizer, fantastic equipment in every regard, and the Ram Mark II, although lacking in post-penetration effect, more than makes up for it in firepower. I have absolutely no idea why we just heard the "we've hit someone" sounds from a Japanese tank, but that's happening in my ears while I'm recording this because, say it with me now, lads and ladies, the War Thunder replay system. I think the cross-nation crew sounds or cross-player crew sounds is a bug that was in replays, well, a month or 2 ago, somewhere around there, somewhere around the time that I was actually recording this replay. And as we watch Lima Victor, again, living up to his name, with a slick 9 kills in arcade in some very heated matches, holding the line all on his own, in many cases filling in for his team, who seems to be dedicated to the idea of humping each other's bumpers on the closest cap zone. At least I see 2 or 3 people there. Sometimes it feels like, oh goodness, that's a bomb. It's time to move. It's time to move. And I think he might have gotten 1 crew turned red, but better red than dead in this case, I suppose, as we make a distinction between red Canadians and red Soviets. That's right, Canada. I've seen you try to become more and more socialist, and that's only going to work if we keep footing the bill for your defense budget now, isn't it? But that's a story for another time. Alright, ring around the rosy, and Toshio has completely lost the point that he lost before he lost the point, but Lima Victor capping the zone for me in my stead as I slowly feel my legs going dead as I suateimasu here on the floor, and an enemy T-34 gets a good shot into our guy. Could this be the end for Victor, Our Lima hero, a shot into the neck of his foe, takes down the stellinium-infused cannon for just enough of a moment to get a shot through the whole weak spot. That's right, there is a weak spot in the hull of the T-34, no matter what anecdotal evidence may suggest. Nicely played, nicely placed, nicely done, Lima Victor, and now the match looks like it's going to be a victory, carrying his team on 11 kills and furious activity, staring at the burned out hulk of Mickey Mouse as we switch to Vist Key 253 in something of an unusual environment. What is this? He's in a bomber. No, it's a Swedish heavy fighter. That's right. What is this? B-18, I think? B whatever it is. Be all that you can be in the Swedish Air Mystery Force. Mystery Force, that's right. Because it's hard to classify what this aircraft actually is. With its powerful pilot-controlled, forward-facing firepower, its somewhat anemic bomb load for a medium bomber, its bomber spawn, and its incredible capacity to take down foes. Vist Key, by this point, already having picked up a kill on an enemy bomber, as I reposition here into, what would you call this? I guess this is, anyway, PE-8 burns to death in the distance. Always a delightful sight to see, even as much in air RB as it is in mixed battles. Is it just me? Or is destroying a PE-8 before he can get over the battlefield in your jet in Tank RB one of the most satisfying feelings in the world? Even not dying to his defensive gunners in the process. Speaking of, the B whatever this is, medium bomber, dive breaks out for Harambe, diving on, what is that? Ju-87? No, we're facing the Soviets. It's a Tizma. That's when, well, anyway, bad joke, can't frame it properly. Far too sleepy. If you hadn't noticed, I definitely have the brain drain today, as a somewhat careless Levechkin 7 comes in to get some sweet lovin's from Meatball Papa, the IKEA heavy fighter, the AirSats twin engine thick boy, intercepting LA-7 in a head-on and successfully engaging in what some critics may call an energy fight. The enemy Soviet pilot, knowing that he will be sent directly to Gulag, if not the nearest brick wall, for a spontaneous Soviet paint job, decides to jump out of his doomed fighter before the engine fully fails where his tactics fell behind. In LA-7, thou shalt not head on the enemy heavy fighter. Thou shalt not. It's far better to engage in energy fighting and avoiding the defensive guns of this medium bomber that's more of, again, a heavy fighter. And that is exactly how Vist Key will continue to play this aircraft at this point, already having picked up 3 quick kills in a match where he will get several more. Stay tuned for that. I'm used to seeing Vist Key on the fields of War Thunder in a tank doing very well. He generally sends me his best, and this is going to be no exception. I didn't know he was this good at aircraft. and it's nice to see someone enjoying their time in wrpl. That's actually a field of the game that I got back into during the recent Lunar Lander event. Easily the grindiest event in War Thunder history, and that was only if possible to get half the vehicles without shelling out on the marketplace. For shame, Gaijin. For shame. In any event, that's a topic for another time, but I am disappointed in how much grind was required for the Lunar Lander event, especially for the fact that you were cut off from progressing past halfway through the vehicles. Again, shame on you. Shame. The grind alone is enough to encourage people to spend. It's just dirty to cut people off from making progress for free. Because you're looking at people who were putting in 8 hours a day for that event. Shame on thee, Snail. Shame on thee. You know better than to do that to your most dedicated players. But anyway, Vist Key showing off that committing to head-ons against, again, this Swedish heavy fighter disguised as a bomber is probably not such a good idea. Himself avoiding damage for the most part, although his visual model shows a little bit of tearing around the flaps, doesn't seem to be affecting his flight performance at all. This bomber actually having some very stable and consistent maneuverability to it at most operational speeds is actually a little bit capable for a little while of turning with a good number of the enemies that it can face. And now time to head back to the base, refuel, repair, rearm, and why not rerun some more of those tiny little Swedish bombs onto a base. Might as well. We've got the time. Digging those big ol' balloony Tonka truck wheels on this bomber as well. And Vist Key having a really good time getting back into the battlefield. wrpl is definitely one of those game modes where you're not always seeing constant action, but I've found that I'm constantly thinking while I'm playing wrpl, trying to figure out where the enemies are, and in this case, it looks like the last remaining enemy is going to be that PE-8 and at least one more enemy. How do I know? Well, I know things. I drink grape juice, and I know things. I've got to substitute a small amount of grape juice for my usual small amount of wine that I put into my water at night for my heart's health. And boy, I need that more every day. But, we're all making sacrifices during this quarantine, and it's just better not to ask my wife to go to the store every single day. She does all of the shopping because she actually has a job that takes her out of the house, working at the post office. And she's staying safe. They're all wearing masks and doing what they can. Unlike my local grocery store, I'm talking to you, Safeway. It's weird. Nobody's wearing a mask, but they're doing things like putting markers on the floor for social distancing while you're lining up for the cash register. The things you do and the things you don't. But anyway, maybe they just made the mistake of listening to the bullshit the CDC was telling us at the beginning of the outbreak. Yes, the Chinese Disease Control. Oh, Center for Disease Control? That can't be right. They clearly don't work for us because they weren't telling us the information we needed to know. Always good to know who's on your side. But that's a little bit too real for what's going on now. And what cannot be denied is that Vist Key has pulled off a lovely number of kills and even run 2 full loads of bombs onto the enemy bases. And now he climbs into space, a space race of his own during this delightful event, to chase down and gun down the last remaining enemy high-altitude bomber, a PE-8, who may or may not be AFK right now. We'll have to find out. Is he changing a diaper the way I would when I was playing a heavy bomber during this event? There were things to do around my house, and one of the things you can do when you have things to do, and all you need to do is get a minimum amount of activity and spend time with War Thunder running in a match, is to bomb some bases and then climb into space. It's not the most considerable thing. It's not the most delightful way to treat the enemy team, but it is historically relevant, is it not? It's not as though a high-altitude bomber would land at a frontline airfield anyway. That's not advisable under any circumstances, and with the high repair cost and good odds of surviving for heavy bombers that stay at altitude, it definitely makes sense, no matter how much enemy players may be put out by the idea that you're playing your heavy bomber the way a heavy bomber is supposed to be played. In any event, now that I've ostracized half of my audience, you gotta see things from their perspective. It's not easy to survive in a heavy bomber if enemy fighters are able to close with you. So what can you do? You do what you can do. It would be interesting if heavy bombers could sort of jump into a match in progress, drop their bombs on targets. There could be like an announcement, enemy bombers incoming, and people who are waiting in the bomber queue would actually join a match in progress, which would give enemy fighters time to climb to your altitude if they're not distracted with other things. You'd be able to bomb targets and then exit the match and go back into bomber queue. A separate queue for bombers, the ability to join matches in progress and leave matches in progress. Bombers don't have to die, you don't have to kill enemy bombers to complete the match, and they get to press the magic spacebar button and do what heavy bombers were designed to do. All of that without interrupting the try-hard boner competition that pilots love to engage in on fighter combat. Unless you're a medium bomber disguised as a heavy fighter, or the other way around. Again, brain drain. In any event, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. As always, link to the Discord where you can get a hold of me over the course of a few hours. I'm not always available. I'm a busy guy. And as always, I love to see the replays you guys are sending in. I have many gigabytes of replay videos recorded on my hard drive waiting for this level of quality commentary, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye-bye.